to start with is just some of the patterns that I'm noticing when I'm, walking past store. Recently, I was walking past the store and I saw those big, like, time now to spotlight style and substance, the retro revival in fashion. Joining us now for insight is Erin Gibbs, CIO of Gibbs Wealth Management. Erin, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you've got a lot of thought on some of the stocks in this sector, whether we're talking about Abercrombie and Fitch, Gap, etc. But what I want to start with is just some of the patterns that I'm noticing when I'm, walking past store. Recently, I was walking past the store and I saw those big, like, wide leg pants. And it feels like those are making a comeback. And I feel like those were around in the 90s. What are you noticing about the trends that are making a comeback?
So absolutely, the big wide leg denim is really the key look and is what is specifically pushing stocks like Gap and Abercrombie back into a higher revenue growth and back into the main street of where people are going back to. Plaid shirts are another thing. I don't know if we necessarily want them to come back, but they're there, and well as lighter colored denim. So shifting away from darker denim into lighter denim. And this is more main street trend. I'm focusing on specifically what Abercrombie and Fitch and Gap really sell and what's really appealing to the younger generations now that may have not lived through the 90s or worn 90s fashions to begin with. And that's what's pushing those stocks up. But we see this 90 revival across the board, whether it's from high-end fashion on the runways right down to Main Street. We're still seeing lots of tracksuits even on the runways on Men's Fashion Week this week now. So it's not a trend that's going away. It's still being produced. And this is something that we can take advantage of with these stocks that have really been beaten up out of tariff concerns.
So, Erin, it's so funny. I was wondering if tracksuits were making a comeback or if that was because I saw a woman the other day wearing a tracksuit and I was like, is she just like stuck in time or is this making a comeback?
It's coming back.
I couldn't tell for sure.
And it's everywhere. It has been all over the Men's Runway Fashion Week for the past 2 weeks. So it is still going to be trickling down for quite some time.
So it's a sign, I guess, that we shouldn't throw away anything in our closets. But Erin, let me ask you this question, because look, the trends do draw people in, and there was the view that Gap would have their turnaround, right? Bringing Richard Dixon in and the work he did over at Mattel and reviving the brands over there. And so it feels like, though, it's been a tough hill to climb because, as you mentioned, the tariff pressure. So Gap has underperformed the S&P 500 so far this year, not significantly, but it has underperformed. Abercrombie and Fitch has significantly underperformed the S&P 500, but I don't want to take anything away from Fran Horowitz because, Abercrombie and Fitch make quite the recovery, but it's a different, stock this year compared to what it was last year. How do you, adjust for that tariff risk that they are dealing with?
All right, so Abercrombie and Fitch really did put in a low about April 8th, and so at about $19. And we've seen them slowly create a bottoming pattern and slowly come up. So I think, sorry, not 19, a little more.
Abercrombie Fitch.
Thank you. Sorry. And so we've seen that slow bottoming pattern. That was very much around tariffs. And I see this stock potentially going back up to maybe a resistance of 100. So we're looking at potentially a 40% gain. We're not talking about necessarily going back to 150, but I think given how well they've established the bottom and the trends that we're seeing, this is one of those stocks. When it's hot, it's really hot, it takes off. And I feel like this is a very safe entry point, especially when it's trading at 6.8 times. We would really have to see some major, increasingly negative news around tariffs for the stock to go even farther down.
For Abercrombie and Fitch, do they have the right mix in terms of trends and, the interest from, especially, say, for instance, Gen Z?
Absolutely, and that's what we have been seeing within the revenues. They've definitely got the much younger Gen Z, Gen Alpha appeal And so they've got the right mix. It's really a matter of if how fast the tariffs hit, but they've also got that nice price point of also attracting that younger customer.
Okay, so they have the nicer price points. And then what about Gap when it comes to, obviously they're leaning into the trends, but, there was a while for Gap, it was a dud, right?
Absolutely.
Nobody, I want to say, nobody was going in there, right? It had lost, the allure that it had in, say, probably the 90s and early 2000s, and you remember those popular commercials and whatnot. But it does seem like there's some revival around it. Is it sustainable?
Gap is interesting. Look, they've got some new people in. They're constantly bringing in new people. So whether the new CEO, they've also got Zach Posen as the head designer. Whether they can really turn it around and make this a 5-year run is remain to be seen. I'm calling this more as when you look at the Gap chart, you really do see it within a trading range. Again, it got hit really hard when it came out with warnings around the tariffs. It's been establishing that bottom. They report late August, and I think this is just a good entry point because as long as they don't have negative news, that stock's going to take back upward. Again, maybe looking at 25, a 20% gain before that report date, and then potentially continuing on there. But again, I think this is a nice safe point. It's sort of at the bottom of the trading range, and you can get in before the earnings report.
Erin, I'm curious to know if you have thoughts on Urban Outfitters in particular, because it has been an outperformer compared to the S&P 500 and even their namesake brand, because that always struggled for years. You would have outperformance at, for instance, Anthropologie, Free People, but Urban's finally, seems to be catching the interest. What are your thoughts on Urban Outfitters?
Another good one. I didn't highlight it today because as you've seen, I've definitely picked the stocks that are bottoming out and really safe valuations. But similar trend, Ralph Lauren is another one that's also done very well on the 90s revival, more on the, the preppy revival side. But again, following that fashion trend that we have been seeing within the media and within fashion for over a year, but it looks like it's going to continue for another year. And making that translate into higher revenue and higher profits, there are a few companies that look to be well poised for that.
All right, I want to get a quick thought from you on denim. Levi is outperforming the S&P 500 slightly. So what do you see in terms of its trajectory from here, and what kind of jeans should I be shopping for?
So light denim, baggy, whether you want it distressed or not is up to you. They both work. Yes, Levi's is another one that's following this trend. Similar idea. You see that nice bottom right around when the tariffs were really a big concern, and then them coming back. And so this is a stock where I think the profit potential is a little less than Abercrombie and Gap, but another stock that's following that trend and riding this wave.
Okay, Erin, I think I can pull off light denim, but I don't know about the barrel, like the giant barrel jeans. I'll leave that to Gen Z. That's Erin Gibbs, CIO of Gibbs Wealth Management. Erin, thank you so much.